What's up, YouTube? Welcome back. So, I want to talk about the response that Jason Lee, apparently he's some type of celebrity or something, the response that Jason Lee did in regards to the Evelyn Lozada OG colorism situation that's been going on lately. And, I just have some things to say. All right. And first, just right off the bat, I'm just going to say, why every time I hear Jason Lee's name, it's attached to some fuckery? That's something to think about when your name, when it comes up, is usually attached to something negative, not positive. That's something to think about too. All right. First, like during the interview, well, not interview, but he did like this video post, basically, or whatever. And first, he wound up saying basically like, who the fuck is OG? And, right off, you're already starting off on a bad foot, right? And to be fair, he didn't start off like his video point blank with that, but that did come up in the video, and it was just like, okay, obviously he ain't for OG or the women that OG represents. We can just put that out there right now, right? So he's talking about like, who the fuck is OG? And well, we can ask the same question. Well, who the fuck is Evelyn? Better yet, we can ask who the fuck is you, right? So, because in a way, it's sort of saying that like, well, because we don't really know you all that well, or at least as well as we know, say, Evelyn, then your word is not to be taken. Your word is not to be taken into consideration. You're not to be believed. Your complaint is not to be taken seriously, etc., 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 right? Just because, off of some popularity contest, basically. Forget right and wrong. Forget morals and values and ethics and all that shit. Just because you just ain't popping as much as the next person. And honestly, to be fair, to be real, rather, that's how a lot of things play out in society. Whereas, like, if a poor person is in the court of law against a rich person, it seems like the scales are more so in the rich person's favor, right? Usually who's ever in the privileged position. Like if a black person is going against a white person in a court of law, seemingly, usually, the scale is tipped in the favor of the white person, etc. It just ultimately, who's ever in the more privileged position seems to get perhaps the benefit of the doubt, to be seen as the innocent one, etc. Right? So this is just pretty much just a reflection of society at large. Just something to think about, and just want to put that out there. All right. So for me, what I'm seeing is with all this playing out and how people are like low-key and high-key protecting Evelyn Lozada. And that's how you pronounce her last name actually if you were in Spain. The Z is a TH, so Evelyn Lozada. But that's another story right there. So a lot of people really don't want to see this racially ambiguous woman get dragged, deservingly dragged. Mind you, it's not like folks are just coming out of nowhere and just, oh, let's pick on a racially ambiguous woman just to pick on a racially ambiguous woman. No. And that's how low-key people are kind of trying to play this out, like Evelyn is just some innocent saint nun, and she's just trying to have fun, and, folks are just hating on her for no reason. And why is y'all doing that? Why is y'all doing that? Why? Like, Like, y'all really gonna sit here and try to make Evelyn the victim as many times as she's victimized other people? But I'll get to that later. So, yeah. So, for me, I'm like, well, Jason Lee, why are you caping so hard for Evelyn, who you admit to not even knowing? Like, during that video post, he said he didn't even know who Evelyn. He doesn't know Evelyn. She came on his show, Hollywood Unlocked, one time. So basically, for me, I think that Jason Lee is trying to cape for Evelyn because she is the more popular one, and as well, maybe he wants Evelyn to be his new fag hag or something. I just don't see that happening. I really don't see Evelyn, making you her token gay homosexual half-breed BFF bestie, Jason Lee. I hope that's not what you caping for, really. Because I think low-key that's what it's about. You're hoping that she'll come on your show again. You're hoping that she'll maybe tweet or post an Instagram pic with you and her in the photo. And you can get some likes, clicks and subscribes and followers and all that good stuff. Nuh-uh. Like, she ain't going to be engaging in faggotry with you. No. She ain't going to be slanging scolding hot tea with you. Nah. All right. And Beyonce sure as hell ain't going to be your fag hag either. Because I heard about that, about Beyonce curbing him at a party or something. This fool really thought that he was going to get Beyonce to be his BFF bestie. He really thought that he was going to be Beyonce's new gay homosexual BFF friend. Beyonce is very particular about who she lets into her social circles. And I don't blame Beyonce for that. You see how she did Kim Kardashian. It's like, hell no. She ain't trying to catch that whole virus shit. She ain't trying to be associated with that. And also, I think word on the street is, I think Kim Kardashian had been with Jay-Z at one point or another. I'm not sure, just like word on the street, though. All right. So, let's just shut that down right now. Evelyn ain't checking for you, and Beyonce sure as hell ain't checking for you. All right. Not in this dimension, not in this time space continuum. No. Okay. And also during this video he posted, he also low-key inserted himself into the discussion, low-key, talking about how white people and black people treated him. The thing is, though, it ain't really about you and your half-breed ass, Jason Lee. And this is sort of like a gaslighting tactic where people sort of put their experience into the mix, but use it in a way to downplay the victim's experience. Like, oh, I struggled. I had to hike up mountains barefoot. I had to work hard. But look where it got me. Something like that, right? Like saying, like, basically, they went through it and it's not that bad. And trying to make your experience and their experience equivalencies. And they're not. It's not that there's not any similarities, but there are some differences. Let's be real. Jason Lee's experience of colorism would be different from OG's experience of colorism. I think we can all agree with that. They may both experience colorism in certain ways, but they're different, as well as their experiences with racism are different too. Let's be real about that. So, while there are similarities, there are some major differences that need to be acknowledged if we're going to have truthful, honest conversation and dialogue and really try and get to the root of the problem, solve the problem, rectify the problem, try to progress, right? But this type of stuff, it's more so just to downplay colorism accusations and to avoid talking about the issues and just making it seem like, oh, well, it's just, you know, it's all equal on both sides. It's just something that we all go through, and it's just all good and hood. And it's just not, that's just not true. All right. But you see, like these niggas, like they'll bitch it up in 2.5 seconds when it's about them.
I'm a badass bitch and I'm about to bitch it up.
She's a badass bitch and she about to bitch it up.
I'm a badass bitch and I'm about to bitch it up. I'm a badass bitch and I'm about to bitch it up.
Whether it is the black men, light or dark, the black women, especially the lighter skinned black women in this case, because the darker skinned black women are letting you know what's up. But, you know, again, ultimately what I'm saying is, if somebody is affected about something, a lot of times they just tend to speak on it, right? At least negatively affected by it, right? Like, say, racism. Racism negatively affects black people. So black people are more likely to speak out against racism than white people, because white people are kind of like on the receiving end of racism, where how can I put it? They're on the side that benefits from racism. I'll put it like that. I think we are more so on the receiving side of the racism, where we don't benefit. Right? Something to think about. And also, something that I saw pop up in this video too was like Jason Lee talking about Latino folks and saying like, basically, that Latino folks, regardless of phenotype as well, have had the quote unquote black experience, just because they perhaps have experienced some discrimination and marginalization. And I'm like, no, that's not true. Again, there may be some similarities, but there are some differences when it comes to the black experience. The black experience is very unique to black American people, right? Because of the history of slavery and the history of Jim Crow, as well as a lot of other things. And this is something that black people have to stop doing. And again, Jason Lee is biracial. He's mixed. In the video, he did say that he identifies as a black man. I don't know if he's jumping in and out of blackness when convenient. I don't know. I don't really check for Jason Lee like that. I don't know Jason Lee like that. I don't want to know Jason Lee like that. I'm pretty sure that the dynamics of his familial situation when it comes to his parents, pretty much KB's mama got with Gorilla Breed daddy and had his half-breed KB's Gorilla Breed ass. And this is why you got all this fuckery here. And, you know, folks want to come for the black women who swirl and have kids. But I'm like, well, I think on average, the black women, their biracial children tend to be less problematic. And that's another story, but I just want to throw that out there too. So for me, like, I need black people to stop sharing our plight and our struggles with other groups of people who don't really even fuck with us like that, unless it's for a come up. Like, I don't see them sharing their plight and their struggles with us, like including us in it, like, oh, you know, we got to watch out for our black brothers and sisters too. I don't see that, right? I see them advocating for their plight, their struggles themselves, and that's fine. They can do that. But the thing is, we can't share our plight and struggle with other people, and as well, other people shouldn't expect us to, right? Because other people very much have a untouchable mentality when it comes to black people, where it's like they kind of don't want to be associated with black people, to be real, because black people are seen as the, quote unquote untouchables, if you will, right? So they do try to distance themselves from black people until shit get real. Then they run into black people asking for help and shit, right? So for me, like, I don't fuck with it, because that's just being too generous to groups of people who just aren't generous to us. I don't see them saying anything equivalent to what Jason Lee is saying on our behalf. So, nah. All right. So another thing that popped up in this conversation was the N-word. And this is something I need black people to stop doing as well. I need black people to stop giving quote unquote N-word passes to non-black people. Like, I saw something on Vlad TV very recently that really grind my gears, to use that phrase. All right? And it really annoyed me when it came to this whole non-black people using the N-word.
When you originally watch your videos, people assume you're white. Yeah. And it's a white dude using the N-word all the time.
He black.
It's my nigga. He a nigga right here.
We
my
all
nigga.
black.
Yeah, he verified by all the niggas. He get to come to the cookout.
Nah, but yeah, nah.
He's invited to the cookout.
To the cookout.
If I was watching my video, I would think I was white too.
Right.
But I mean, I'm not white. I'm Mexican. I'm full Mexican. You feel me?
So fuck all you bitch ass niggas saying all that stupid shit, man.
So needless to say, pick-me-ism runs deep in this community. And I think low-key, pick-me-ism could be a little bit at play when it comes to this Evelyn Lozada situation. And it's just like, we gotta stop looking for validation from other people. I think that we gotta stop being a bit, like, I don't know, it just seems like folks are just a little desperate for somebody to love them. Particularly black people are desperate for people to love them. All right. Also, something else that's important. Since we all brothers and sisters and we all black, right? Just everybody black, right? Can we call Latinos wetbacks? Since we all, the same, we all black and all that stuff, and brothers and sisters, right? So if we calling Latinos wetbacks since they saying niggas and shit, is it cool? Is it all good? Right? I had a coworker, he black, actually like, Afro-Latino actually, but pretty much like a black, like brown skin, dark skin dude, looser textured hair, but nevertheless, if you saw him, you probably think he was a black man. Yeah, and he is. But he said, and this was like a while ago, years ago, but he said he was like, I don't know, I guess having some sort of a conversation with this Latina chick. And I think she was just saying the N-word just like very much flagrantly. That's how you say that word? Very much wilding out, basically. All right. And then he had asked where she's from. And I think she said basically some Hispanic island in the Caribbean. I don't know if it was Puerto Rico, Cuba, Dominican Republic, but one of them, probably Puerto Rico. And then he said, oh, so you from, them wetback islands, right? And then she got all offended by it. Like, really? You just saying, like, N-word this, N-word that, all through your conversation. And then you get offended when somebody say that you come from an island of wetbacks, right? And mind you, his mother is actually Cuban. So his mother, technically comes from, the wetback islands, if you will, right? But you see, like, is this, since we all, we all supposed to be brothers and sisters and, black and brown coalition. But you know, they ain't really sharing their shit with us like that, right? But we supposed to share our shit with them, right? And again, like, no. No. You know, there is a certain amount of respect and a certain amount of, it's like basically just things you don't do, and there's certain boundaries that need to be set in regards to familiarity, if you will. Like, there's some things that you may do with your family that you wouldn't necessarily do with your friends. There's some things that you may do with your spouse or lover or whoever that you wouldn't do with other people, right? There are boundaries being placed. Like, you're not going to just, you know, talk about certain situations with other people that perhaps are very private, because there's a certain amount of familiarity that needs to be established before you do that. You know, I know that's not the best way to explain it, but I think you can pick up on what I'm saying, though. All right. And, you know, FYI, Evelyn is a wild ass wetback on the loose. She really is. Like, look at the shit she doing. Like, if the brown skin and dark skin black women were behaving like Evelyn, they would be called all types of hood rats, hood boogers, hoodlums, gutter rats, hood bitches, you know, hair-hatted hooligans. While this old, you know, light-skinned beige alien versus predator looking bitch can just get away with shit. She just can get away with a lot, especially when she's in black spaces. Who's giving her these passes in black spaces? Like, y'all that desperate for some non-black validation? Yes. Yeah. And let's think about it. If OG, let's say, you know, we all know that Evelyn's using the N-word all willy-nilly. Let's say if OG was to call Evelyn a wetback. How do you think that would play out? How do you think that would go down? On the show, but also on social media and off the show. Right. Think about it. They would shut down OG with the quickness. She would be shamed off the show. In order for her to stay on the show, she would have to go on some long ass, drawn out apology tour, talking about, you know, the struggles of Latino folks, and pretty much giving a long ass mea culpa. And yeah, Evelyn, she doesn't have to do that. And that's partially because black people have given Evelyn a pass. Enough, not all, but enough have. Right? And then Evelyn's jumping in and out of blackness when convenient too. Now she's saying that she's an Afro-Latina, and other folks are saying, well, there's tweets and, you know, social media evidence saying the contrary. So, like, where did this Afro-Latina shit come from now, right? And that's what happens. Like, it's kind of like folks jumping in and out of blackness when convenient, to sort of like, oh, when they engage in like colorism and anti-blackness, you know, they'll, you know, activate their black side. You know, they be throwing they you know, they black granddaddy, either locking him in the closet or locking him in, you know, down in the basement. But on occasions, you know, they'll let their black daddy, you know, their black granddaddy come out of the basement or come out of the bedroom closet for a second or two. That shit happened with George Zimmerman. They did that shit with George Zimmerman, right? Usually they know good and well to make sure that black granddaddy is locked tight away in the damn basement or something. Like, nope, granddaddy, nope, you can't come out. You gotta be lighter than a paper bag to come out, granddaddy. Sorry, you gotta stay down here. Company's over. We can't have them seeing your black ass. Right? So you can't just jump in and out of blackness when convenient. You know, you just gotta be black all the time or be black none of the time. Right? And then Jason talked about, oh, you know, she has black kids. She got black kids by black men. She married a black man. She ain't racist. How you gonna have black kids by black men and marry a black man and be racist? And I'm like, well, so that doesn't mean that she's not a racist. That just means that she's an opportunist. She saw a good opportunity and she went for it. Right? That was a come up for her. Now, if it wasn't a come up for her, it may be a different story. But that don't make her not a racist. That just makes her an opportunist. You know, she knows how to take advantage of a good opportunity. All right. And then we get to this whole like women of color thing. And anytime somebody's saying women of color, when we are having conversations about black women specifically and colorism, give the biggest side eye to that. Okay? I'm talking about examine that with the biggest magnifying glass. Hell, under a telescope. Fuck a microscope. Goddamn, put it under a telescope, a big ass telescope, and just look at it, because that's something that you really need to be aware of when folks talk about women of color, especially in conversations about black women and how that term gets thrown around. And then Jason talking about, you know, I see a, you know, women of color going after another woman of color. Fuck that. Who gives a fuck about that? We're talking about what's right and what's wrong here, and talking about colorism, and we're talking about black women. Fuck this women of color shit. And didn't Evelyn just say that she's an Afro-Latina? So technically this will be black women going after black women on charges of colorism. So miss me with that. All right. All right. Then another situation came up where they said that OG was taunting Evelyn with her abuser, Chad Ochocinco. First of all, I'm like, how does Evelyn even have the audacity to claim to be a victim of domestic violence? I mean, was Evelyn a victim of domestic violence? Perhaps. Perhaps she was. But more so, she was a victim of karma, in my personal opinion. I personally just think that this was just Evelyn's karma that came back to headbutt her in the forehead. So, and I know for Evelyn, like I know Evelyn, Chad Ochocinco got an X-Men Mutant Apocalypse Omega level red chrome dome head. I know Evelyn. I know you probably felt like there was no way out. You probably felt like it was the end for you. You probably felt like it was Armageddon on that ass. But you know what, Evelyn? You know what? You survived. You're a survivor, Evelyn. You didn't stop. You worked harder. All right? You lived to tell about it. Right? And look at the bullshit you telling, Evelyn. That's the thing, too. It's like, oh, you a victim of domestic violence. Okay, well, really? Like, a fuck out of here. I just don't. First of all, Evelyn very well could have been a victim of domestic violence. But the thing is, because of Evelyn's history, people aren't very sympathetic, unfortunately. And sadly enough, when it comes to black women who are victims of domestic violence, especially by black men, it really pretty much just any men, really, the sympathy and empathy just isn't there. And not saying that Evelyn is a black woman, but I'm saying that putting black women into this mix about domestic violence and how that plays out, and really just violence in general that's perpetuated on black women, it seems to be less of an outrage, and it's not a, I don't know how to put it, but it doesn't go over well. You know, unfortunately, that's just a part of the marginalization of Black women, right? Where it's like when crimes are perpetuated against them, when crimes are committed against them, right? It's just the concern isn't as strong, right? Like, Sandra Bland, Corinne Gaines, that Eurasian police officer who was specifically targeting Black women to sexually assault and rape, right? That court case received very little media coverage, all right? So, for me, I'm like, if Evelyn was serious about domestic violence, I think we would know about it a bit more. I don't know. Maybe perhaps she is. I just don't get that sense from her. I really don't think Evelyn gives a fuck about domestic violence. Evelyn is domestic violence, minus the domestic part. And probably, low-key, she probably provoked the fight anyway. Again, not saying that it was right for Chad Ochocinco to headbutt Evelyn with, an X-Men Mutant Apocalypse Omega Red level Chrome Dome head. No. But nevertheless, I think if something like that had to happen, I think it happened to the right person. And as well, if you are a woman, but especially a brown-skinned and dark-skinned Black woman, and you want to advocate for Evelyn on behalf of domestic violence that she says she has experienced, well, you're better than me. All right. I think really you should probably just stay out of it. And I think mostly they are. I really don't see any Black women caping for Evelyn, talking about she's a victim of domestic violence. Leave her alone. And from what I heard, she was trying to reach out to Chad for some receipts on OG. So obviously the situation wasn't that bad, Ultimately, I think what happened was just Evelyn was more so embarrassed and blindsided by the situation, and felt some type of a way about it. And she's like, no, let me press charges on this nigga. Right. And she thinking that she just the racially ambiguous pretty girl that's going not experience no bad shit. And basically, she thinking her light skin and perhaps hair texture will exempt her from fuck niggas. No. Honestly, it may actually attract the fuck niggas. That's the thing. So at least with the darker skin Black women, like, at least that can sort of at least propel or repel rather the fuck niggas. And also, one more thing to mention. Word on the street was OG wasn't at the reunion. I think it was because they didn't want her to be at the reunion, because they felt like, they were in danger, because OG was going to become very violent and belligerent and just start attacking people out of nowhere unprovoked. And, Evelyn and Shawnee and a lot of other women apparently feared for their lives. And I think it's great that, Basketball Wives is standing up and taking a stand against violence, especially violence perpetuated against, Black women. But apparently they want to take the stand now when it's against a darker skinned woman who they feel is the perpetuator of it. All right. So again, I don't really buy this whole situation with Evelyn, and I'm not here for the domestic violence sob story. I'm just not here for it. I personally think you got what the fuck you deserved. And really, I think he got off easy. And then Jason Lee talking about he Chad Ochocinco beat Evelyn's ass. And I'm like, I don't think he, like, quote unquote, beat her ass, like, straight down to the ground, stomping her, like, stomping a mud hole in her ass, if you will. Which, unfortunately, some, actual victims of domestic violence, especially black women, have experienced that. I did hear a black woman say that, her black husband did do something like that to her, beat her down to the ground, stomping on her, spitting on her. That is something, but not in this case, though. This isn't the case for it. This isn't for it. Like, Evelyn ain't a victim. that's what I'm saying. Like, she ain't a victim, and she getting this victim treatment throughout the whole situation. Like, not even just this, but throughout everything. I'm like, Evelyn ain't a victim. She's a perpetuator. She's a victimizer. And by the way, the woman who said that about her husband beating her, she was a light-skinned woman, and her husband was a brown-skinned, dark-skinned man. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying you got to be careful about who you attract when it comes to all this colorism shit. The type of men. I'm not saying that all brown-skinned and dark-skinned men are out to get light-skinned women, or not for them, or gonna do bad by them and all that. But I'll put it like this, though. If these niggas ain't got love for themselves, and as well as the reflection of themselves, which would be brown-skinned and dark-skinned black women, then they don't have love to give you. They can't give you something that they don't have. All right? So that's my piece of advice to, the light-skinned women out there who, may be looking for Mr. Right. And as well, who may be, low-key high on colorism, acting like they just got it all, and, it's all good in the hood for them, and they don't have to worry about shit. But, yeah. Something to think about, though. But this video has gone on long enough, so I'm going to bring this video to a close. Again, I didn't mean to go on for too long. Well, I didn't mean to go on for this long. But that's how it ended up. That's how things ended up. But I thank you very much for watching this video. Thank you very much for your time. And, please leave a comment. Leave your comment and your feedback about all this. And, tell me what you think. Let me know in the comment section. Until the next video, adios and goodbye for now.